I believe when you're in it, there are doorways. And in order for you to take advantage of being in it, you need to learn how to open up the doorway.
Absolutely, George. I'm with you 100%. And we mentioned earlier, many people are looking at the anomalies of what are happening, on our planet, physically, culturally, in terms of civilization. Everyone knows something's up. This isn't business as usual. Something big is on the horizon. Almost universally, the texts, the traditions, the prophecies, and I know you've had people on the show talking about this, they describe some very frightening scenarios, and if you take the time to look closely, they always give an alternative. And for those listeners that have studied the Bible code, and I know you've talked about that on the program as well, some of the most frightening predictions in a 3,000-year-old map of what is believed to be a map of the quantum possibilities of our future in the Bible code, some of those most frightening predictions of global war and Holocaust, and those are the words that are used. Right below those predictions, George, there's a phrase that not many people talk about, and I don't know why. But that phrase asks a question. When it shares those frightening possibilities, the phrase says, "Will you change it? Will you change it?" I get goosebumps just saying that. Will you change it? Implying that somehow the outcome that's so frightening is not set in stone, that somehow it's still malleable, it's still soft, and somehow that we are participating and have input and some choice in terms of how this time in history plays out. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this material, because we're part of the answer. It's not out there, and we can't wait for other people to figure this out. This is us. It's our time in history. I think history is going to look back at us, at this generation. They're going to say, this is the generation that chose peace because they had to survive. But this is the generation that recognized that the 20th century was all about learning who we are.
What about greed, though? Where does greed fit in here?
Well, greed, I think greed it's a byproduct of power. And power is a lot of what our time in history is all about. Where do we find our power? And do people that believe they have power, do they really have power at all? Because, George, ultimately what we talk about a force that connects everything, and everyone has access to it. And we already know the language to speak to that force. What the ancients said is that opens the doorway to another force that nothing on this earth can touch. And those are the words of philosophers and ancient texts. What scientists are showing is that when we tap this power of emotion and we are tapping the emotion in our bodies to speak to the field in a meaningful way, that cancers can disappear. AIDS doesn't make any sense to our bodies. And there are people now that have transcended the AIDS virus, that there were documented cases of children born with AIDS that no longer have the virus in their bodies. And the question is, what do those children do? Are they taking drugs? Are they eating a mushroom in their refrigerator? Are they wearing a stone, around their neck? And while those things may help, the bottom line is those children are feeling a love and support from their family. They don't know that they're supposed to die from this disease. And in the presence of those kinds of feelings of love, their body changes. And we all have, we've all got stem cells waiting for a command from our hearts to tell those stem cells where to go in our bodies to replace whatever it is that's been damaged. But we're conditioned to believe that isn't possible. And all of these things are documented in the open literature. It's truly a miraculous way of looking at life. But what the bottom line is, it empowers us to be more than victims in our lives. And at this time in history, I think that's important. I think it's important for all of us.
I use this every day in my life, Greg, all the time, except I am human. And there are sometimes I feel as if I've closed the door or I'm not in it anymore. Now, like you say, we're always in it. Sometimes I'm not sure.
Well, we have to be, because, as Max Planck said, physical matter stems from this field.
I guess it's like being invited into a home. You're in this house. There are many rooms there. and it's up to you to decide where you're going to go?
You could think of it that way. I'm a very visual person, and from our audiences, when they think about this field, we're so conditioned to think, and people actually will take their left hand when they talk about the field, and they'll say it's out there, and they'll motion away from themselves. They'll say out there somewhere. If we could think of the universe as a really thick blanket, and our bodies and our lives are fibers within that blanket, and every atom that makes up the cells in our bodies are a part of those fibers. It kind of gives us a sense that we're the fabric. We are the fabric of that blanket. We're the fabric of the universe. John Wheeler actually stated, Albert Einstein's colleague, who's still with us today, when I was in school back in the 60s and 70s, I was taught that essentially we are relatively latecomers in the universe, have very little effect. The universe has been here a long time. We've come along recently. We don't have much effect now, and when we're gone, the universe won't ever know we're here, essentially, is what I was taught. And that's a school of thinking. Einstein was of that school. There's another school of thought, and John Wheeler exemplifies this, Einstein's colleague. He says, the universe may have started without us, and it may have been here for a long time, but it's not finished yet. And what he says is that consciousness and us within consciousness, we are creating the building blocks for the universe, and it's an ever-evolving universe. So essentially what he's saying, if we ever wondered why we can't seem to find the edge of our universe with the Hubble telescope or with our observations, or why we can't seem to find that smallest particle of matter, George, every time we break one open, there's something else there.
Stay with us, Greg. We're going to get to the top of the hour and be back with phone calls. Stay in. Welcome back, Greg. As we ran up to the break, I wanted to make sure that you had said everything you had wanted to say before we start going to calls.
Sure, George. I appreciate that. We were just talking about the two schools of thought that permeated the 20th century regarding our role in the universe and what it means in terms of this divine matrix. There was the school of thought that says the universe has been here a long time. We don't have much effect on it, and after we're gone, not much is going to change. And then this was Einstein's way of looking at things. His colleague, John Wheeler, said just the opposite, said that consciousness is actually creating and building the universe as we go. And it's a profound thing to say. That it may help explain why, for example, we can't seem to find the edge of our universe. We can't seem to find that smallest particle of matter, because what John Wheeler is saying in words is being borne out under laboratory conditions. Every place we look, the act of consciousness peering to the edge of the universe or into the smallest particles of matter, expecting to see something, is an act of creation, George. It actually puts something there for us to see. But we know that anecdotally, and I know all of our listeners have had these experiences, and we can laugh about it, but it shows just how this works. What happens if you've got 3 minutes to get to the bank and cash a check and get back because you have to be back at work, and you go in there knowing that you've got just a couple of minutes and you've got to be out and you're in a hurry? What teller line are you going to end up in?
I'm always in the wrong one.
Well, exactly. If you're on the freeway and you're feeling that feeling, the tension. I live 4 hours from the nearest airport here in northern New Mexico, and there's a lot can happen on my way to the airport. And I can't tell you how many times I've felt that tension. I've got to get there. People are waiting for me in another city, and as soon as I feel that, I'm going to get behind like a 52 Chevy pickup truck coming down the mountain road that hasn't moved for a year, and I have to laugh because I know that's the way it works, and it works just the opposite as well. So what we know is that it comes back to us in sometimes humorous ways, but the world is always showing us that we're interacting with this field of intelligence, this divine matrix. Some people will go through their lives interacting and never really understand how it works, and that's fine. And others will recognize that sense that something within us is untapped is an experience, a power that can be harnessed through our innate ability to feel. And the key and the bottom line to everything we're saying here tonight is that if we can learn to feel as if the things that we choose to experience have already happened, that is the language this field recognizes. The laboratory experiments show it.